We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today is Nashville baseball historian Skip Nipper. We're talking about Nashville and baseball, both on the major league level and other things that are going on with the sport here in the town. Skip, we talked about the changes between the major and minor leagues, particularly with decreasing the size of the draft and maybe fewer teams going ahead in the future. There's also talk about the creation of a dream league. What would that be?
Well, as I understand it, it's just a league at the lower level for young men to be able to try to do what it takes to get to a higher level. I think it has more to do with some of these teams that will go by the wayside. Johnson City, for example, may be in a dream league if they get rid of the Appalachian League.
We've talked a lot about the changes that are coming in baseball. Some people are looking back to the olden days. You're involved with some groups that play, particularly during the spring and summertime, using the rules for baseball back in the 1860s, back when baseball first came to Nashville during the Civil War. How different is that, and do you get pretty good interest in it from
the
fans
rules
coming
are from 1864, except for a few. You can't throw at a runner that's running between first and second and hit him for him to be out. We don't allow that because we don't want anybody getting hurt. But one of the rules in those days was that if a fly ball bounced one time and was caught, it's still an out. And there are other rules, like you can't run through first base without risk of being touched and put out. But I'll tell you, I'm an umpire. I tried to play when it first came out several years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, and it was just a little bit much for me, even though I dreamed of doing it. But I have become an umpire, and I love it. And what is the best part about it, we know that baseball is a gentleman's game, and we have ladies that play too. I have met some wonderful people on vintage baseball.
You mentioned umpires. There is an experiment that began last season. It's going to be expanded to other minor leagues, not all minor leagues, but other minor leagues this year, that would basically have the balls and strikes not called by the unplayed umpire, but by a computer. That's a pretty radical change.
It was tried in the Atlantic League, which is an independent league that Major League Baseball hooked up with to experiment with it. My guess is that the experimentation worked well enough that they want to take it a step further and try it in minor league parks.
What happens to the home plate umpire? There are other things a home plate umpire does, call plays at the plate, foul balls, things like that, balks, things like that. So do we still have a home plate umpire, but he just doesn't call the balls and strikes?
Yeah, and you can't say throw the robot umpire out either.
You can't argue with it.
You can't argue with him. He's got an earpiece. Well, I think you can argue with it still.
Yeah, well, you can get thrown out in the game. Do you argue if you argue with the computer, you get thrown out too, just like you do if you do with an umpire?
No, but I think you can question whether a call was correct or not. The umpire has an earpiece that hears strike or ball, I think, and that's how he makes the call immediately.
Does this mean that umpires are on the way out, maybe on the bases going forward?
I don't think so. I don't see how they can do that. There has to be somebody taking care of with the business on the base paths. And
why
even
does baseball keep tinkering with the game? Is it the length of the games? Particularly in the postseason, they always go to at least 4 hours, and it just seems to drag out in a lot of cases. We didn't hear as many complaints about it this year because of the things that were going on, and the games, for the most part, were competitive. But no matter what they've done, time clocks and everything else, it really has not greatly reduced the time.
I don't think so either. It seems like the umpire should be given the ability to make a player step up to the plate quicker or to throw quicker. I think that's part of it. It is a business enterprise. Major League Baseball has to sell commercials, and I think that's one thing to think about. If you cut the games by a third, about, let's say, an hour, that's one less hour the ballpark has to sell beer and popcorn and Cokes.
Well, and the other thing that's changed in the game are the rise of analytics, the rise of shifts and things like that. Usually when we were kids, the only way you did a shift was because you didn't have enough players, and if you hit the ball to left field and you were a right-handed hitter, you were out because you hit to the dead field, you were out. But in this case, it's become, you used to see it only with Ted Williams and Lou Boudreau back in years ago, but now it's become a part of the game. It's not going to go away. It's
not going to go away. Steve Little, I was at Lipscomb to hear him speak. He's the bench coach for the Detroit Tigers, was talking about how many cameras there are inside the baseball stadium in Detroit, and that after a play, behind the dugout, there's an analytics guy there who can bring up a replay so that he can see the play again, so that he can do the percentages of outs and that kind of a thing.
Do you think WAR is a better way to measure it than RBIs and batting average? Because there are people now that think WAR and these other analytics they've come up with are a better way to look at it.
Well, there's a lot of things that you can measure, but you can't measure heart, you can't measure desire, you can't measure whether a guy's going to be on the injured list in 2 weeks either when you just trade traded for him. There are a lot of things. You know, the baseball cards of my youth and yours gave me all the information I wanted. The batting average, the number of home runs, the ERA, and strikeouts. That's what I want to know.
And you still want a Mickey Mantle thing over somebody else's card.
No
the predominance of home runs and strikeouts in baseball, is it too much? Sometimes the games almost appear to be like Sunday baseball beer leagues or church leagues. Everybody scores on home runs or they strike out.
There are so many instructional videos, there are so many batting cages, there are so many instructors, and they each have a basic style. And you'll watch that, what they call the home run swing, that uppercut swing to hit the ball out of the ballpark, not necessarily
and
a
they
level
talk about
swing.
that, the angle of
Talk about the angle. Another thing that I'm not crazy about is the bat speed and how fast the ball went out of the park. To me, that's meaningless. If it goes out of the park, let's call it a home run.
As we close out, the Sounds are a franchise that do very well in attendance, and so many times they lead the minor leagues. But it's not necessarily because the baseball is great. The team has rarely contended for a pennant or the playoffs, but they lead the league. It's more about the entertainment experience. Is that what Major League Baseball needs to look at more, about how they can be more entertaining rather than worrying about what kind of game is put on the field?
Well, I think so, and I'll tell you right now, the Nashville Sounds have done a wonderful job marketing their product, and some teams could use that as a milestone, how they should market their ball club.
Skip Nipper, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back as this baseball situation continues to develop in Nashville.
Thank you, Pat.
And thank you for joining us this week on Inside Politics. Hope you'll be back here again for a future show. If you had enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.